Back in late 2016, I decided to take a solo trip into a remote section of national forest about 4 hours from where I lived. I'd recently become obsessed with abandoned places, especially old ranger stations and fire towers hidden deep in the mountains. During one of my late-night internet searches, I stumbled across a forum thread talking about a forgotten ranger tower that sat miles away from any marked trail. Apparently the structure had been shut down for years after storm damage made it unsafe. Technically, nobody was supposed to climb it anymore. That honestly made me want to see it even more. Most of the posts I found were old, though. The newest photo anyone uploaded was from nearly 5 years earlier, so I had no clue whether the tower was still standing. Early that morning, I parked my SUV along a gravel service road and loaded up my hiking pack with enough supplies for 2 nights. The hike itself wasn't really a trail. It was more like navigating through endless forest while occasionally checking coordinates on a handheld GPS. At first the terrain wasn't too bad. But after a couple hours, everything became steeper and thicker. Branches clawed at my clothes. Loose rocks constantly slid beneath my boots. The deeper I got into the mountains, the quieter everything became. I remember thinking how screwed I'd be if I got injured out there. Nobody would find me for days. By the time I finally spotted the tower rising above the trees, I was exhausted. Even from a distance, though, I could tell it was still standing. The structure looked ancient. Most of the paint had peeled away, exposing gray weathered wood underneath. Still, it looked surprisingly stable. I carefully tested the support beams before climbing. Everything held. The staircase creaked beneath every step as I made my way upward. When I reached the top platform, the view genuinely stunned me. Nothing but mountains and forests stretched in every direction. No roads. No houses. No signs of civilization. Just endless woods disappearing into the horizon. The tower cabin itself was tiny. Inside was a rusted cot, an old desk, and shattered windows that rattled every time the wind picked up. There were faded papers scattered across the floor along with bird feathers and years of dirt. Still, it felt safe enough. I unrolled my sleeping pad, cooked dinner on my portable stove, and watched the sunset from the outer platform. It was honestly one of the most beautiful places I'd ever been. After dark, though, the entire atmosphere changed. Clouds covered the sky, blocking out the moon completely. The forest below became one giant black void. I sat outside for nearly an hour listening to the wind move through the trees. That's when I noticed a strange glow moving below. At first I thought it was a flashlight. But the light flickered strangely. Orange. Uneven. Almost like somebody carrying a lantern. The glow drifted slowly between the trees maybe a few hundred feet away. I remember immediately feeling confused. There weren't any trails out there. The odds of somebody wandering around that forest at night were incredibly low. Especially carrying something that looked like an old lantern. I watched the light move through the woods for several minutes before it disappeared behind a hill. After that, everything went dark again. Eventually the temperature dropped enough that I decided to head back inside. But before I stepped through the doorway, I glanced down toward the clearing beneath the tower. Someone was standing there. Completely still. I couldn't make out details in the darkness. Just the outline of a person staring upward at me. My stomach immediately tightened. I awkwardly called out asking if they needed help. The figure didn't answer. Didn't move. For several long seconds, we just stared at each other. Then slowly, the person lifted one arm almost like a wave. After that, they turned and walked back into the trees. No lantern. No flashlight. Nothing. The whole interaction felt deeply wrong. Still, I convinced myself it was probably another explorer who'd found the tower. Eventually I climbed into my sleeping bag and managed to fall asleep despite the constant creaking of the building. I don't know how much time passed before I woke up. The wind had stopped completely. Everything outside was dead silent. Then I heard it. Metal clanging. Slow. Rhythmic. Someone climbing the staircase. Every step caused the metal frame outside to groan softly. At first I thought I might still be half asleep. But then the sounds got closer. Faster. My heart started pounding. I sat up and listened as the footsteps continued climbing toward the platform. I grabbed my backpack and flashlight before stepping outside. The sounds immediately stopped. The silence afterward felt horrifying. I slowly walked around the platform toward the staircase opening. Nobody was there. I leaned over the railing and aimed my flashlight downward. The staircase was completely empty. I stood there frozen, trying to understand what I'd just heard. Then sudden footsteps exploded behind me. Fast. Heavy. Running across the platform. I spun around just in time to catch a dark figure darting past the cabin windows. That was enough. I didn't think. I practically threw myself onto the staircase and started climbing down. The entire structure shook beneath me. Halfway down, I looked up. A face appeared over the railing above. I only saw it for a second. But the expression looked completely emotionless. I hit the ground running. Branches tore at my arms while I sprinted into the woods. Honestly, grabbing my backpack before leaving probably saved my life. Without my GPS, I never would have found my way back to the road in complete darkness. I hiked for hours before finally reaching my SUV right before sunrise. I drove away immediately. To this day, I still have no idea who that person was. But I know somebody else was up in that tower with me that night. And I'm certain they were waiting for me to fall asleep.